David hooked up here? Henry's David still hooked up?
No, that's I don't think.
Oh, you got it. That's a certain right. That's probably it, right?
Well, you know, sometimes it's
Never had that one.
that's understandable.
Have you got the
The candidate for the presidency would be big head for
What, 90 something?
Okay, everybody, we're going to start in 5 minutes. 5 minutes, we start. All right, everybody, thank you for making it back. We're going to go ahead and start, and I hope you all enjoyed the UN today. Actually, we all got in, and I think Owen and Medhat deserve a round of applause for that, right? I mean, we got 100% into the UN, which in and of itself is a big thing. Absolutely. And then we were honored with Prince Nicholas, with Ambassador Vuthi, with Director Mejia, and our wonderful panelists. I mean, it was an incredible morning. And I was just talking to Adrian about the morning and how much it meant to all of us to hear about human trafficking. It's a hard subject to hear about, but it's important. And we talked at lunch about the fact that we want to be in the hard places. And we want to go to where the pain is. So that was a really good morning. So thank you for making it back here after lunch and all. And I just talked to David Beasley, and he knows, of course, Prince Nicholas. And so I just got David on the phone, and they had a nice conversation. And so that was good. And I told him, I said, David, we're going to check with you at 10 after 2. And so he's ready to talk to us. We'll chat with him about 20 minutes. Then we're going to hear 10 minutes from Young Gil Lee, our brother from South Korea. And then 10 minutes with Brother Tong from South Sudan. And then we're going to have some group discussion, a break, but we will be finished by 4 o'clock. Okay? And so this is important because Dr. Reed Martinez is taking an Uber at 4:15. And so we can't function without her. So we've got to be finished by 4. But I ask y'all to stay until then. We're going to have some group discussions and other things. I know Prince Nicholas has to leave before then, but thank y'all. And we'll go ahead and get David Beasley on the Zoom call. I'm going to just ask him some prompting questions, and I've briefed him on where we are and what's going on, how many people are participating from different countries and online and everything. So he's aware of all that. So our friends up in the booth are going to connect with us so we can see him on there. All right. We got 2 people in the waiting room, and here we are. We actually made this happen. David, we're here. We made it happen. Uh-oh, we got an echo in the room here. Yeah, my computer is muted. The gentleman up in the booth already told me to mute my computer. So let's see what we maybe cut that off. Does that help? Wait, David, hold on just 1 minute. We got to fix the audio here.
I hear you good now. No echo now.
Okay. It's echoing here. So the guys up in the sound booth, can we?
I don't hear you at all now. From no echo to nothing. Oh, now I got you.
Yeah. He's coming down, David. Our tech guy's coming down. Give us just a second. By the way, great to see you again, and I'm so glad you could connect with Prince Nicholas by phone.
Well, it's always good to see Prince Nicholas von Liechtenstein. He is not just a great friend, but he is an incredible person, leader in the world, behind the scenes, quietly helping improve, the state of affairs around the world. It's leaders like that truly are helping keep the world, the planet, in place. And right now, the planet's very fragile, as you well know.
Yes. Now, David, can you hear me now?
I hear you good.
Beautiful. Well, we've got it settled, and thank you for taking a few minutes. I'm going to do this for you, just so you can see some of this fabulous crowd. We've got folks from 47 countries, about 125 people here attending GILP, and we're just really honored to hear from you and appreciate you taking a few minutes to share with us. And I told the group,
it's my honor.
I said when I walked in and I spoke to Prince Nicholas and I said I was from South Carolina, the first thing he said was, "Do you know my good friend David Beasley?" And that's the way we started the morning. But we had a tremendous morning at the UN, David, hearing about human trafficking. We've been focused these last 2 days on good governance, human trafficking, combating corruption, and peacemaking. And so I was just wondering if you could tell us your thoughts from a leadership perspective, from your leadership, not only as governor of South Carolina, as a House member before that, but then executive director of the World Food Program, your thoughts on good governance or really any of those subjects. And then I'll ask another question or two after you've shared with us a bit. So we're just honored to hear from you.
It's great to be here. And, you know, one of the things that I learned as United States governor and being in the House of Representatives, that leadership matters. You know, this is what people find strange, but it shouldn't. But as you remember, because you were my lawyer in the governor's office, my best friends on the floor of the House were usually my biggest political enemies. We would fight it out, but we always fought from our heart, did what we thought was right. In the end of the fight, we would embrace, go have dinner together. And that was the civility of democracy that really is incredibly successful around the world when it's implemented like that. But today, it's gotten so divisive, and you compound that with all the other issues that we're facing around the world, from COVID impact, the climate impact, the conflict impact. Then you add that fourth C, and that's corruption, which is the most devastating factor around the world. And I can show you firsthand, and now having been the executive director of the World Food Program, where we were feeding 160 million people on any given day, week, or month. And if I came into your country and fed half the population or 25% of the population, when you're there feeding people every single day, week, and month over several years, you see what's going on inside a country. And I can tell you firsthand, when you have corruption and lack of leadership, people suffer, and it's devastating. And right now, the situation in the world is getting worse, and it's going to get worse over the next 12 months.
Yeah, I believe it. So give us an example of when you go to a country, and you know, and you and I have been to a lot of hard countries. You've been feeding people in a lot of difficult countries. We have a parliament member here from South Sudan who's going to speak to us in a few minutes. We have friends here from Turkey, devastated by earthquakes. We have great work in Myanmar. We have a contingent from Mongolia. But just give us an example, without naming names specifically, of when you go into a country and you see that corruption is a major issue, what do you try and do, and what would you tell our leaders here that they could do as a step?
Well, several things, and you know, you have a member of the parliament from South Sudan. South Sudan is a classic case of failed opportunity. It was a country with so much hope, so much opportunity, but because of corruption and so many issues, it is catastrophic. So when I meet with leaders, what I usually do, we'll cover the things that we need to cover in terms of operational capacity in a country. And that's complex. We're not just talking about bringing in food. It's very difficult because 80% of our operations are in areas of conflict. So we have to deconflict between warring factions, moving supplies in, because if you don't move supplies in and get them strategically located, it's not just a cost factor, but it means people not only will die, but then they have to yield or succumb to ISIS or Al-Qaeda, extremist groups, this type of thing, because they use food as a weapon, weaponizing food. And so in my meetings with prime ministers and presidents, what I'll usually do is run everybody out the room and have a heart-to-heart and talk to the leader about, look, I don't care what your past is. I don't care how many mistakes you've made. This is a time now that you need to step up and be the leader that the people need. And, you know, somebody's got to talk to these leaders to the heart, because the heart is what's critical. It really is, no matter their past, no matter they're in positions of power. The other thing, Henry, which is critical, is particularly donor nations into these countries. And I've been really hard. I don't want to say who I've done this with, but I've done this with most of the leaders in the Western world. I've met with them privately and said, you are creating grave consequences in developing nations where there's lack of transparency and there's corruption, because you're not holding these leaders to this standard of accountability. And that is nothing but a catastrophe for the poorest of the poor in these countries. And that's where we are right now. And here, and let me be very clear, in the next few months, particularly in low-income countries, because of debt level, devaluation of the currency, inflation, food pricing, fuel costs, you're going to see potentially 40 to 50 countries have destabilization in a very serious and significant way. And as I tell the leaders, particularly in Europe, if you're talking, for example, like African countries, because the trails, the pathways, the routes that have been established for slave trade, trafficking, sex trafficking, drugs, ISIS, extremist groups, those routes are established. And so if you have destabilization, you'll have then mass migration into the European countries, for example, and the cost, because people do not want to leave home. But if they don't have food, any degree of peace, they'll do what it takes to help protect their family. If that means moving, they will move. And the number of people that have been displaced, for example, last year was unprecedented, 108 million people. We've never seen anything like it. And it's going to get a whole lot worse. And the cost is 1,000 times more once they've left the country versus helping them at home.
Yes, wow, that's powerful. So I meant to tell y'all, if you have questions of Mr. Beasley, let us know, and we'll try and get him to answer a few questions in a few minutes, because I don't want to be the only one asking questions. But David, you and I have been to Egypt many times, worked there. We have dear brothers and friends who work in Egypt, and right now they're dealing with a lot of refugees coming up from Sudan and South Sudan. What do you say to encourage workers like this who are trying to make a difference, working day in and day out, not getting any acclaim or media attention, but they're doing the right thing? What would you say from your experience to encourage, and this room is filled with people like this, I might add. One of our workers is here from Ethiopia, and they're suffering from drought, as you know, but how do you encourage and tell people to keep going?
Well, neighboring countries, I can go from country to country, and this is where the Western world, particularly Europeans and Americans, need to understand is that, they have a lot of political fallout from the refugees or the immigrants that they have, but the refugees, and these are on wealthy nations whose GDPs are in the billions and trillions. And so you can imagine, okay, that has an impact. But go to a poor country that's already at extraordinary debt level. And let me say very clearly, the debt level that we're facing now in low-income countries is unprecedented. 67% on average of their GDP is in debt. So you got extreme stress right now. So when they get refugees, they're already struggling to even feed their people. They're struggling to have children in schools. They're struggling for the basic infrastructure and getting the commodities, if they're an import nation, getting the commodities that they need, the fertilizers they need, the fuel they need. And I can assure you, when I took this role as the executive director of the World Food Program in 2017, in 2016, there were 80 million people marching towards starvation. That number went from 80 million to 135. I actually thought I could put the World Food Program out of business. But I was thinking 80 million out of, at that time, 7.6 billion people. We can end the need for the World Food Program because there was $400 trillion worth of wealth around the world. I'm like, we can end poverty. We can end hunger, extreme hunger. But the number went from 80 to 135. So you have to ask the question, why? Mm-hmm. Well, man-made conflict, compounded with climate shocks. This is all pre-COVID. COVID comes along, economic devastation, ripple effect, supply chain disruption, and it recycles and recycles. And the big economies were doing economic stimulus packages, $25, $30 trillion worth, which would have been monies that could have been put into low-income developing nations, but they were trying to, don't kill the goose that lays the golden egg. You had to get those big economies going again. So that created stress. All of these things together. So the number went from 135 million people to 276 million people marching towards starvation, not knowing where their next meal is coming from. That's pre-Ukraine. So just when you think it can't get any worse, then you have Ethiopia war, you have Afghanistan, then you have Ukraine, the breadbasket of the world, grows enough food to feed 400 million people, boom, taken off the market. And as you know, I was in the middle of negotiating and pushing for the Black Sea Grain Initiative to move those food supplies around the world to ease the commodity market. Well, the number of people went from 276 million to 350 million people literally not knowing where their next meal is coming from. So that stress level on the poorest of the poor countries is unprecedented. And you can't just look at what pricing has done in the last 6 months because it eased down a little bit. You've got to look at where the pricing for fuel, food, et cetera, was right before COVID, because the pre-COVID levels compared to where we are now, we're still 100, 150, 200% in some places on food costs, inflation, devaluation of the currency. Fertilizer is a crisis right now. And in Africa, people, if they even can get it, they can't afford it. And the fuel costs are still continuing to pound the poorest of the poor. So we're looking at some tough times ahead in the next few months. And the funding level, for example, to the World Food Program is dropping dramatically.
Yeah.
I mean, dramatically. And so people ask me, well, how did you raise so much money? Well, when I arrived, we were raising about $15 million a day, per day, 365 days a year. 1/3 of that was from the United States, and Trump was going to zero out the budget. He did. And I ended up talking to him and leaders, the Democrats and Republicans, and we reversed that. And we took the funding level from $15 million a day, instead of going down to 10, we ended up going to $39.4 million per day. That's what I was raising the last year that I was at the World Food Program. We raised $55 billion in 6 years. Now, that was part of the reasons we got the Nobel Peace Prize, because the Nobel Peace Prize Committee clearly understood that food is critical to peace and stability and security of any and all nations around the world. We know that. And so the leaders, I helped awaken the leaders to the reality that we are facing. Unfortunately, the message is getting lost again. And the leaders, I don't think, recognize how vulnerable the world really is on food security at this stage. So if you go back, and Germany learned this lesson, taken from the Syria crisis, because Europeans did not zero in on resolving the Syrian crisis when it was resolvable. They did a very simple study. They had 1 million refugees out of Syria into Germany. Over a 5-year period, that cost was $125 billion. That's about 70 euros per day per refugee. At the World Food Program, we can feed that same Syrian in Syria for 50 cents a day. And guess what?
Yeah.
When you feed 160 million people, we survey them all the time. They don't want to leave. They'll move 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times inside their country before they'll leave their home country. But if they don't have food, they will, in fact, leave. And so do the math, $70 versus 50 cents. And that's just part of the cost. That doesn't even get to many other factors on security and military and other operations. And so it's a lot cheaper to go in early and do it right so that people don't have to move. But right now, we're at unprecedented level. The funding level for WF World Food Program is dropping dramatically, and there will be a price paid.
Yes, I've seen that recently. And by the way, we have a friend here who lives and works in Aleppo, and he stayed there even though his family had to move to another country, but he stayed there trying to make a difference. And I'll speak to you about him later. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
tragic.
I've been there several times and done everything I can on cross-border operations between the Russians and, as you imagine, Turkey, Russia, Syria, and the United States and the Europeans, negotiating that, moving the cross-border operations as well as moving cross-line operations that don't require cross-border in the particular Aleppo, Idlib area. But I've been there firsthand and seen the devastation of people who were just good, God-fearing, hard-working people losing everything they have, and it's a very, very unstable area right now. And this is where I've been hard on the developed nations leadership. The Syrian crisis needs to be resolved. Now you've got Lebanon and Jordan, very vulnerable, very fragile, and there are consequences for failing to address these issues. And so, as I remind a lot of the leaders, you've got some serious issues out there, and you need to solve them, and they're not being solved.
Yes, I agree totally. I'm going to pause here. I want to ask you, before we conclude, for maybe a couple of leadership principles that you would share that you've learned over your leadership experience. But before I do that, let me just pause. Does anybody in the audience have a question that you would like to ask Mr. Beasley? If you do, just say it out and we'll try and repeat it. Anybody have a question? Yes, sir.
My question is, how do we leverage on the exposure and relationships of people like him and yourself that are well exposed to now begin to address practically some of these issues? Because on the supply side of the arms and all that profiting cost-benefit analysis of what they're using. How do we ensure that we can speak at least to the moral responsibility aspect of some of these people and leverage our relationships with them? And then the aspect of even the economics of it, that's the cost-benefit analysis aspect.
Yes. All right, let's stop there, because if you ask more, I'm not going to be able to remember it all. That was our friend Abu Bakr from Ghana, David. He's basically asking, how do we leverage the knowledge that you're giving, that we offer here at GILP, to speak in a moral way and to impact people in his country? I mean, how do we do it? What practical advice would you give? I think is basically what you're asking. Is that right?
Yeah, and people like him and
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
leveraging on your
I got that. I see. I think I covered that. What do you say about that, David? Is that question specific enough?
Yeah, I think so. And to me, it's not very complicated. And one of the things I've been hard on state departments and foreign ministries around the world is that they want to ignore the faith factor of many nations, whether they're Christian or Orthodox or Catholic or Muslim or Hindu or Buddhist. But when you go to leaders, they basically have a faith factor that they've been raised up in their population. And almost every single nation on the planet, the leaders have a fabric of faith. And almost all those textbooks of the scriptures of those particular faiths have some common threads like love your neighbor and honesty and integrity. And so, as I tell State Departments, you've got to talk to the people about the values that they have, as opposed to what many of the State Departments will do. They'll try to ignore religion. Oh, we can't talk about religion. Well, that's insane. This is the basis of this country, their faith. And so you've got to appeal to those leaders based upon those principles that are the same principles you have pretty much in every country and every religion around the world, like love your neighbor, help the poor, help the needy, do what's right, be honorable. And so when I talk to the leaders in countries, I usually know 4 or 5 of the major points of their scriptures that are the same ones that could be in the Gospels or the Torah or the Bhagavad Gita or the Quran or whatever it might be. These values are critical to the leadership. And so when I meet with leaders, I appeal to the values that they've been raised on because they get it. And when you try to ignore that, well, you know, things just don't happen. And one of the things I also try to tell leaders is, and when I meet with leaders is, you know, I usually don't walk in and start doing like this. Every now and then I will. It's a very, very bad situation. But usually I try to earn their trust and respect. Listen. As a leader, one of the greatest things you can do is listen. And particularly when Western leaders will go into a country and just start telling them and pointing, they're not giving them any credit to the successes and the things that they've done, and just start pounding on the one thing that they don't like, they earn no trust, earn no respect. And I found if you enter into an agreement without trust and friendship, that agreement won't last. But if you enter into trust, relationship, friendship, then you'll develop an agreement that will last. And I can go from country to country that I've engaged in the past many years. When we established friendships between enemies, then they worked out the problems versus you try to work out the problem without a friendship. That normally just does not last.
That's a great answer and really, really helpful. Thank you, David. We've got time for one more question. And then we've got to wrap up, and we're coming up on to 25 minutes. So let's see, we have one more question from the mayor of Izmir, Turkey, who's here, David. Another country that you love.
This is not a problem that you can solve by money.
Mm-hmm.
And that we need to look at solving the root problem.
Nasıl bir çalışma içerisindeler? Yani biz para vererek bu işi çözemeyeceğimizi gördük.
Now,
Para azalıyor, insan artıyor.
we see that we can't solve the problem by throwing money at it. In this crisis that we're facing, the number of people has increased and the amount that's coming in is decreasing.
Yes. He's just saying, and this mayor has responded very well to the earthquakes. In fact, as you know, we're taking trauma counselors to Turkey in 10 days. But the mayor's making the point that while the need is increasing, the money is decreasing. And so we've got to address these issues other than just with money, to your point. And why don't you wrap up with your response to that, David, and then we'll be finished. Thank you.
Well, this is a critical point, and this is why I thought we could put the World Food Program out of business 7 years ago, 8 years ago, because we had 80 million people versus 350 now, 345. And so what I've been really hard on is with our donor nations is give us the flexibility to create sustainability and resilience. In other words, instead of just bringing in food, or bringing in cash, whatever it might be, let us rebuild those communities and these economies by putting down irrigation systems and water wells. And when we do that, we're out of there. I can give you anecdotally, experientially, simple factual analysis when we've come in with resilience programs. For example, in Niger alone, in 80% of the communities where we did resilience programs before Ukraine crisis, they did not need additional support. It saved hundreds of millions of dollars. And so when we come into a place, let's say like in Niger, where you got ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and you got droughts, you got all these issues. When we come in there and just don't give out food, but do a land rehabilitation. By the way, let me just give you a couple of facts, because the WFP, World Food Program, we rehabilitated over 4 million acres of land in the past many years. And guess who does that? The poorest of the poor. They're greening up the planet again. We literally built over 100,000 holding ponds, small dams, and reservoirs, over 81,000 kilometers of feeder roads, 28,000 kilometers of irrigation canals. And when we do this type of work and then come in with like a homegrown school meals programs, let me tell you what happens. Migration drops off the chart. Teen pregnancy and marriage rate of teenagers drops off the chart. Recruitment by ISIS and Al-Qaeda drops off the chart. Quantify that migration factor, quantify the lack of recruitment by ISIS and Al-Qaeda, all of those factors. It's a lot cheaper to come in, give solutions, and solve the problem. One last anecdotal evidence. United States border of Mexico. Down in, we can talk about Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, it doesn't matter. Venezuela, Ecuador, Haiti. The amount of money it costs the United States to put a child in a child shelter on the border is $3,750 per week. Per week. For $1 per week, we can have a food security solution on homegrown food for that child and family back in Guatemala or Honduras.
Yeah. Wow.
So anyway, he's right on. And this is where we've been hard on the donor countries. Give us the flexibility to put these types of programs in place versus just handing out food and handing out cash, because that does not solve anything other than a short-term crisis. So, Henry, great being with all of you. Leadership matters.
Thank you. You're singing our song, and I just want to introduce you to Trey here. He's one of our Global Hope colleagues, and when you're talking about all that work with the ponds and everything, he's talking your language, Trey.
Yes, sir.
And Trey's doing this in Thailand with our team there. And so I just wanted you to see one example of the kind of thing that you're talking about, where we're trying to make a difference at the lowest level in people's lives. So, David, thank you. It's been an honor to have you with us, and especially knowing your relationship with Prince Nicholas and Art Lindsley and Ben Smith and others who are in this room, and they all send their greetings to you. Celia does as well, Medhat, and we just wish you the best. Keep going. Don't give up, because you know what? People like you and people like the people in this room, if we stop, then the evil side wins, and we've got to keep going and be encouraged. So thanks for this time. It's been great to be with you.
Well, it is. You know, a friend told me one time, all the darkness in the world can't put out the light of one little match. Beat that match. And you put a lot of matches together, guess what happens? You get a combustion. So in that room, there's a lot of light, a lot of combustion,
Absolutely.
a lot of hope, a lot of love. That's going to make the world a better place. Thank you, Henry. Blessings to you all.
Thanks so much. Take care. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Okay.
We should have recorded that. I didn't even think about that. until just now. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that. That was very informative, helpful, and, you know, the people that, to which we've been exposed today, to whom we've been exposed today, it's really incredible. And the possibilities, and, for example, is Ambassador Fernandez in here? Yeah. Well, anyway, we were having lunch with him, and Medhat and I mentioned to him that we were going to Armenia on Sunday and to see our work there, because Global Hope has work in Armenia. And he said, oh, well, I'm going to call the ambassador from Armenia and get you in to see him before you leave on Sunday. Wow. Isn't that amazing? I mean, that's what relationships do. And I just feel like today and this week is moving us to another level, and that's due to all of you all, and so we thank you for that. And David really loves the work we're doing, wants to know more about it. In fact, he and I are meeting in Columbia in a couple of weeks, because he said, I want to meet with you and find out more about Global Hope. And so that's a really good sign. So anyway, thank you all for that. Young Gil Lee, where are you? All right, come on up, sit right here. And we're looking forward to hearing from you. I don't have your bio in front of me. I apologize for that. But I do know this. This man is doing a tremendous work in peacemaking initiatives with South Korea, North Korea, and the United States. He's a person who brings people together. So last May, I was part of a meeting with Young Gil Lee and Dr. Lindsley in Washington, D.C., and we signed agreements between Global Hope and Young Gil Lee's organization to try and be prepared for one day moving into, once we have good relationships with North Korea, that country. This is really important. And so what he's talking about is a model for all of us in peacemaking. So, brother, you've got it for 10 minutes, and our ladies over here, she was showing me the sign just a minute ago, okay?
2 ladies.
So you got to pay attention to her, too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Be sure you get that close enough now, 'cause
Right.
it's a little hard to hear.
Yeah. So peace building is one of the very important agendas that I related South Korea. In fact, the Korean Peninsula, that includes North Korea too, to Guild platform. So last 5 years, quite a number of important leaders in Guild has come to South Korea and also give good advices to the government and civil societies. And David Beasley, in that connection, also were invited to one of the very important global peace platform at Pyeongchang at 2 times. So I really appreciate the contribution that Guild platform is making. Now, I want to just focus on 2 areas in regards to South Korea and her contribution to international development cooperation and peace buildings. So next, please. Oh, sorry.
You want me to do it for you?
That's okay. So just briefly, let me tell you the Korean model in a gist. So it was to create sustainable engines. You know, about 70 years ago, South Korea was one of the poorest countries, in fact. Korean War broke and everything was devastated, nothing left. And we were in such a position to receive aid from outside countries. So United Nations and European countries given their aid to South Korea in 3 forms. So capital goods and raw material and technologies. Now, what's unique and what I'm proud of in this process is from the story from different countries, quite often we hear that the resources they receive outside, go into the pockets of political leaders and some leaders of the society quite often. But in Korean case, somehow I'm so grateful to my ancestors. They have invested in two areas. That one is technology development, and the other is education, especially transformation of the mind. We considered it very important because for the development, the most important asset is mind. So the transformation of mind was so crucial in the process of Korean development, and that's exactly what we like to share with the nations. Now, from those two investment in two areas, technology development and mindset transformation, led to the creation of private enterprise. So with the money that we received, we established a private enterprise, and then the giving countries provided us a market. So for example, USA has given us aid, and not only aid, but also markets too. So we established private enterprises, and we developed export-driven economy, so that the things that we have manufactured, we sold it to the US market and other countries. So we could accumulate our own capital. Now we don't need any more foreign aid. So we become self-reliant. And then now, in the late 1970s, South Korea become a giving country. So we are not anymore receiving country, and we are returning the blessings that we have received from the nations back to them, and especially to the developing countries. We have a very, very strong burden and a sense of responsibility that South Korea wants to make a contribution in the process of development of developing countries. Now, Elder Yonggi Kim was a founder of Canaan Farmer School, and he understood this: mind is an asset. So he was a person, to spread the values of work, service, and sacrifice, because until then, the Korean people thought the blessing was to receive. But now he began to teach the Korean people, saying, well, to give is much better than to receive. And once your mind is transformed, then you can transform your family, your school, your society, and the whole country can be transformed.
All right, wait a minute. Before you move, what is he doing?
He was a founder of Canaan Farmer School.
No. What's he doing?
That is a pioneering bell. So he awakened mind of the Korean people. That's a symbolic gesture. Okay. Every morning at 4 o'clock, he get up and ring the bell.
You want to think about doing every morning at 4 o'clock. You could ring the bell for global hope. It's just a thought.
Yeah. So
thank you.
Yeah. So in fact, the Korean people get up early and listen the pioneering bell at 4 o'clock, and they start working. So the working culture, labor, the value of labor has been taught to Korean people since the launch of the Canaan Farmer School, and that was a model village. Canaan Farmers School taught and established. It's been transmitted to public policy. So New Village Movement was born by President Park Chung-hee. It was a self-reliant movement campaign influenced by the Canaan Farmers Movement. So we experienced a transition of the model village, in a small scale, because the group of people who understood the values of work, service, and sacrifice and transformation of mind, they could build small villages, and that village became model, and it became a national campaign. So that is known New Village Movement that has made Korea as it is today. So now, we want to return the blessings to the nations, especially in 3 areas. Number 1 is million micro school worldwide. we believe that mind is an asset, so transformation of mind is the key to development. So Koreans do not want to give the money away to the nations in need, but we want to help them to transform the minds of the people through education. So micro school, I've been in India for 20 years and also in Uganda for about 5 years. What I can see is uneducated areas because they don't give value on education. And there are so many places where there's no teachers, no school buildings, textbooks. So it has come to my mind that micro school, that is a combination of digital technology and contents with educational facilitators. So because there's no teachers, they can't teach, so we provide digital contents. So educational facilitators, once trained from us, will know how to run the system. So that's the micro school worldwide. And I hope that it'll be relevant to you who are serious about the development of education in your country. And the second is Peacebuilding, Global Inter-Korea Peace Initiative. I think multilateral diplomacy is very, very important concept that I have learned from this platform, GILP platform, because I've been engaged in this GILP platform last about 10 years. And what I learned and also what I've done in this platform is not only I've learned a lot about different public policy lessons and insights, but also I utilize this platform as a diplomacy platform. So it has become a public diplomacy platform. So I invited a group of leaders of GILP to come to Korea and have interactions with government leaders and civil society so that they give the lessons that they have learned from their experience to Korean society. And the governor of Gangwon, which is the only province that's been divided between South Korea and North. So governor of Gangwon invited the leadership of GILP to the province. So we have signed a memorandum of understanding. And GILP began to contribute in many different aspects for the development of the province. Not only that, but also development of inter-Korea relations. So it has led us, the leaders of Gangwon province, to Washington, D.C., and of course, Geneva, and also Germany, and many other countries. So GILP has become an excellent public diplomacy platform that I want you to know, and that's the area that you want to tap, for your development. In order to solve the problem of your country, international relations is extremely important. Now it's before you, and how you want to tap the potential, diplomatic potential of global, GILP, and get GILP back to your country. So
I wanted to point out before you leave that slide, I know we've got to finish on this, okay?
Sure.
But the Young Leaders Immersion Program,
right.
we're bringing some South Korean leaders, right, to Geneva?
Geneva,
Yeah,
that's right.
I thought so. And then just as a tie-in, everybody, you see the Res for City. You remember we've talked
Right.
about that this week? This is another big renewable energy project
Yeah.
that we're partnering with you guys on. So
Yeah,
I
just
wanted
briefly,
to
because
mention
only
that.
10 minutes are given. So I just want
You
to
want me
make
to
a
be
point.
quiet? Is that what you're saying?
I want to finish with REST for City thing. REST for City is a short form of renewable energy system for the cities, and that's about the energy transition in European cities. So REST for City is sponsored by European unions and the government of Switzerland, and they've chosen GHNI as a partner. So I'm an ambassador to REST for City to South Korea. Now, among many things that we do under that name, one of the things is particular in peace building, especially in inter-Korea relations. As you know, South Korea, it's difficult to make a direct contact to North Korea. You know, even Indians and others have better access to North Korea than South Koreans. But we really want to have the ties with North Korea for peace and development. Now, Radford City provides a platform. Now, what we do is, instead of make a direct contact with North Korea, we make a contact with leaders of Mongolia, right? Mongolia has a diplomatic relations to both Koreas, okay? South Korea, North Korea, they are in a very good relations. So we build a partnership with Mongolia, and Mongolia partnership with North Korea in this platform so that they will pull the leaders of North Korea to come to Radford City platform, where countries are in interactions, and this is an educational platform indeed. So United Nations, UNITAR, Institute for Training and Research, are closely related. So we invite North Korean leaders to Geneva and learn about renewable energy development for North Korea in such a way the energy would become a medium for peace. So in that platform, leaders of North Korea and eventually with South Korea will interact, so inter-Korean relationship would be facilitated.
Wow. That is amazing. Thank you. Wow. That's amazing, and I hope you'll have a chance to get to know this brother, get his email address. These are some really exciting. Thank you, Prince Nicholas. Good to see you. Thanks for taking the time. It's an honor to meet you. Thank you guys for facilitating that too. I hope you'll get to know this guy, because what he's talking about, and one of the reasons we wanted him to share this, is because what they're doing, working closely with Charlie and others, is a model for others of you. Okay, with Res for City, with student immersion projects and so forth. And so thank you, Young Gil Lee. It was an honor to hear you, and I heard you loud and clear that you didn't want me to take any of your 10 minutes.
That's good.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you for
Yes,
this
sir.
wonderful
Thank you.
opportunity.
It's awesome. Please, brother, come on up. Thank you. Please. Thank you. Another distinguished parliamentarian from South Sudan, whom I've just come to know this week. It's been an honor and a privilege to have you here. And I believe you're going to share with us for 10 minutes on the issue of corruption. And so, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to hear young you coming to South Sudan. We need you. Thank you so much. The time is really short. I would like to comment about the corruption. And as you heard, David is speaking about South Sudan. South Sudan gained independence in 2011. And we are one of the countries that are affected by corruption. Currently, we have issue of economic crisis, because when the war had happened, we have our money devalued. When I was a member of parliament, my salary used to be 10,000 South Sudanese pound, which is equivalent to $3,000 US. When I went back to parliament, it is equivalent to $25. You can do the math. So this is a huge economic crisis. Right now we have war in the northern neighborhood in Sudan, which is a mother country that we secede from. And we had by then 1.6 million refugees in Sudan who are South Sudanese. Now they are trying to go back to South Sudan, and also the brothers from North Sudan are trying to run back to South Sudan to seek for refuge. And now the government does not have means to facilitate those. So these are all the challenge. My topic of contribution on issues of corruption today is fighting corruption through law, morality, and education. I learn a lot from Young when you talk about education. I say law and morality because, like I said last time when I spoke here, that all the problems that we are facing are the problem of leadership, whether in family or in society or in the government. And also I said the problem is also not the government, it's individual problem, because we have individuals who have problem of leadership that became members of the society, that bring their problem to society, that bring also their problem to the government and the community. Our problem of corruption is an issue of law. The corruption happened because of the greed. We talk about the human trafficking. Why there is a human trafficking is because people need money. They want to do business. We talk about slavery. The slavery, when it happened, we all read the history when the Roman Empire disintegrate into a small kingdom, French, Portugal, and all this kingdom, and they want to expand their territories because the kingdom do expand their territories so that they have a lot of resources. They went to Africa. That was because of the economic value. They were looking for money. They were not looking for people. So they use people, they bring people to the US, to the Europe, not because they love them, but because they want to use them so that they get resources, because they get a free level. So our issues here of the greed, it go back to law, because if we have law, we have the rule of law. Nobody will dare to go and get somebody's child to go and run away with, so they make business. So I would want to share with you my personal story. I know the time is very short. I became a member of parliament in 2011, and I was the youngest member of parliament. Before that, I worked as electrical engineer at South Sudan Electricity Corporation. And when I went to parliament as a young man, I had energy. I thought that fighting for 50 years since Sudan became an independent, the South Sudanese who were Christian, who were marginalized, I thought my people need to enjoy the dividend of freedom at last. And when I went to parliament, I had a different idea of a good country. I had an opportunity to go to school. I read about other countries that are developed, and I want South Sudan to be like them. One time, I moved a motion against the Minister of Finance and the Minister and the Governor of Central Bank because of the issues of the hard currencies. The central bank money used to give money to Forex Bureau and commercial banks so that the public should have access to this money when they need hard currencies. So what they did, the Governor of Central Bank and the Minister of Finance have created Forex Bureaus in the name of their children and their wife, so that when the central bank give money out, they take this money and give them to their children. So I moved a motion for them to be impeached. And the parliament took it serious, and I was very serious. So what happened after that, they came to me and they said, we want to give you money. We want you to withdraw that motion from the parliament floor. And we can give you $1 million US. You are a young man, you can go to Uganda, buy a house, you go to Kenya, buy a house, you have family, young family to raise. My conscience didn't like that. I said, this is my country. This is my money. I cannot be bought by my money. So I don't want your money. And the motion will continue to go. So what they did, and this is where my problem started, that led to the killing of my brothers. These are all these issues. And they said, if you don't want money, we're going to deal with you. And they actually deal with me after all, they killed my brother. But the point that I'm trying to make here, I did not take the money. And when I became an asylee in the US, my family lived in the refugee camp for 6 years in Uganda. I thought about this money sometime. I said, am I stupid, really, if I would have taken this money? But now I realized I was not stupid. Here I'm talking about moral values. I'm not trying to talk about myself as a good person, but I'm telling you a true story that had happened. That if we respect the law, we have to respect the law as individual. And our definition of politics also is a problem, because people define politics as a, as a dirty game. And because of that, it draws dirty people who think that we go to politics to get money, to get rich, to rob people. So I think corruption, we can fight corruption if we go back to the rule of law. It is not hard to fight corruption, but if the rule of law, and now let me talk about law. What is the role of the government? The government role is very crucial, it's very important, because government creates people. I want to prove that to you. Government create law. Law regulate the life of the people. And the lifestyle of the people become the culture of the people. If the government say you cannot cross red light, you don't cross red light. And it become a culture. You are conscious when you go to the road, you know that when the light is red, you don't go and cross the red light. And there are consequences into that, because there are precepts. The precept that if you cross the red light, you are going to die. And law that we are making are a problem. Because even the law, the legislation law that we are making, there are laws that are natural law, that are divine law, that we are violating. I want to quote something here, and I know my time, my beautiful sister here, she's trying to show me that my time is going on. Law, you know, they serve the country from corruption. And law, you know, serve the country and make the country prosper. And law can make the country develop. And this is why when we have a lawlessness country, we turn to law enforcement agencies. So what I'm trying to say is that in 8 centuries ago, there was a guy, a Jewish man by the name Isaiah. And that guy said something. He said that I am seeing that there is going to be a government somewhere. There is a guy who is coming, who is a king, who is going to establish his kingdom, and he will rule over it and establish that kingdom with justice and righteousness. And that is echoed by the United Nations. When I went to New York, I find something at the statue at the United Nations entrance that said, "He shall judge among the people, and he shall rebuke so many people, and they will beat the sword into plow, and they will beat the sword into plow." Let me read it. "He shall judge among the nation, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat the sword into plowshare, and their spear into pruning hook. Nation shall not live up sword against nation, neither shall they learn about war." This is the United Nations. So I think we need to think about that. That is a moral law that we need to go back to, that need to guide our life. The law that we are creating are contradicting the national law. Even the scientists agree that the nature, the universe, is governed by law. So we need to go to law, and we need to go to law as individuals. We need to go back to our country, advocate for the rule of law. And we start by ourselves and be an example. When I went back to South Sudan, I get respect from the people who insulted me and who told me, "You are stupid because everybody is taking money and you don't want to take money. This is all your money. Everybody is taking money." And now they have taken money and the money have gone. All of us now do not have money. But who have remained with respect is the one who did not take the money. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you, brother. That was very powerful. Thank you. Thank you, my friend. That's a great word from that quote from the UN. Thank you. All right, we're going to, for our schedule, change just a little bit. I'm going to ask Dr. Reed Martinez to lead us through some group discussion. And what we're going to do is do that from now till 3:30, and then we're going to go on our break, and we'll be finished. So you can go. We'll conclude by 4 o'clock the break, but we're not going to go for a break now and then come back in. That doesn't make much sense. So what we'll do is we'll have some discussion, answer some questions between now and 3:30, go for our break, if that's okay with y'all and the team out there, Mid-Hat, and then we'll say goodbye to everybody from the break area at 4 o'clock. Kathleen?
Great, thank you so much, Henry. It's great to be able to come together at the end of a couple of wonderful days and bring together our thoughts. So I would like for us to take just a couple of moments and think through some key pieces. I think that the summary here at the end, law, morality, and education were the three that were named to help transform the nation and to stand true with that. I would like for you to break into small groups, but your first step, again, is going to be jotting down some things that you think about and you reflect on. And so as we look at the day, we've had the tragedy of the growth of human trafficking, practical things to do to fight that, and we heard there needs to be awareness, a raising of the consciousness of the nations that this really is an issue and that it is not to be silenced. Well, that sounds like a pretty strong moral imperative to me, which would fit within the three categories that our brother brought to the table. We've heard also about the critical issues that's coming regarding the food crisis. It's already there. That's another issue of what will be that moral stance that says that the people come first and that they will not starve instead of lining the pockets of maybe selected people. So these are the challenges that we're seeing over and over again. So as you think about it, looking at law, morality, and education, what would you add to, or would you keep just those three? What else would you do, or what have you experienced in your nation? So let's just take about a minute and a half for you to jot those things down and just reflect on that a little bit yourself. I may give you 2 minutes for that. Okay, we'll give them 2 minutes.
You don't have to tap.
Just think it through. What are you experiencing in your nation? What are you experiencing, and what are you seeing that can be done? The core aspects. After you work silently, then we'll break into groups. So just work quietly for a couple of minutes. You've got about 1 more minute just to jot things down. I want you to think, I want you to reflect on your own before you talk with each other. What comes to your mind, okay? What do you personally think about? There's method in this madness. We should be silent now. Okay, that gives you about 30 seconds. So you got that? Everybody looks like they're looking at me. A couple of people still writing, so I'll give you about 15 more seconds. This is reflection and thinking time. Okay, now I want you to get with one other person and share what you wrote down and see how it compares and contrasts to theirs. So I'm going to give you, again, about a minute and a half or 2 minutes. I'll give you about a minute and a half because I'm going to have you go another level.
A minute and a half, no more.
Yeah, I just want a quick exchange of what did you come up with that was similar to or different from the person beside you. It's called Think, Pair, Share.
Absolutely.
Let's sing happy birthday to her before somebody leaves. We'll celebrate tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I know, but you gotta say this. We gotta finish one. Okay. So, this is where, you know, comes down.
Giving you 30 more seconds, and then we're going to get some quick comments to another round of group conversation.
Well, yes. Yeah. All right, can we, Trey?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now I want you to double the size of your group. So if you were in a group of 2, now get with a group of 4. If you were a group of 3, now get with the total group of 6. So, okay. You need to, if you were 2, join now with 2 more people. If you were 3, join with 3 more people. So we'll have groups of 4 and groups of 6.
Bonnie Lou in that old town, I'm going to be here at 6:30. Can you help me with this, Mid-Hat, because it's not, when I put Bailu Restaurant, it's not coming up. It's a nice Italian restaurant down in Old. Is that okay to go? Yeah. We'll get to it. So it's going to be you, Maddie.
Give you about 20 more seconds. These are comparison notes. They should be going fairly quickly.
Team, you know, the action team notes. Okay.
Okay. All right, let's get 2 or 3 quick responses from the group, from the whole group. So here's my first question. How many of you added to the list of the original 3 that we had? Law, morality, and education. Who added something else? What group added something else? Okay, let me hear quickly. What did your group have to say?
We added the aspect of poverty eradication if possible, but we said mindset transformation should be the #1 focus, because you can't have national global transformation without mindset transformation. Too much emphasis on the aspect of infrastructural development without the mental infrastructure and evaluating consistently.
Good. So building that mindset that becomes the bridge over which all these other things can be developed. Good point. What does another group have? We're on the left side of the room. Can we go to the right side of the room? Okay, here we go.
Combining some ideas would be having a visionary and experienced leader, and then also family
Good.
and independence.
That's great. All right. What's another comment? What else was not on that list that you would add?
We put as a way to transform the mind, so communicate values through media, arts, and entertainment, especially to the young generation who are really modeled by these things.
Good. All right. What else do we have? Who else has another comment they'd like to add to this? So these are like foundation blocks when you talk about transformation and change. Now what I want you to do, I'm looking at, let's see if I've got my list here, law, morality, education, poverty eradication, mindset transformation, visionary leadership, family, and communication. Those are the things that you came up with. Now, you personally, think again for another moment. What is an action step that you will want to take based on what you've heard? the things you've learned. Remember yesterday we said, what leadership development do you need to have? And then what on top of that are you going to do to help you develop your emotional resiliency? Now I'm asking you today, what of your leadership goals do you want to write down, and how does it then impact with the things that we learned today as well as yesterday? So let's jot that one down. I'm going to give you, this is quiet, again, personal work, and then we're going to share with each other.
We'd love to hear some of that.
Yeah, we'll hear about it. What are your action steps? What is at least one action step? And we're going to talk about it when you get through writing about it. I'm going to give you 1.5 to 2 minutes. I'll go by your body language with where we are on it. Should not just be another item to do on your list, but what is it that I can do differently? What new goal do I set? Okay, in the next minute or so, I want you to share it with 2 or 3 people around you. Okay. Now we're going to share it with each other. So you've had time to think about these things. You've had time to talk with them about each other, which reinforces what you wrote down. I hope you wrote it down when I asked you to write it down. And now you're going to share it with another level. So hopefully that'll be 3 times reinforced, and you will remember it for the year. So let's hear from you. What are some of the things that you're listing for yourself as critical over the next year? What's your takeaway? What's your action step from this meeting?
Yeah, we got one over here.
Okay, great. Yeah,
The mayor is, he's tapping.
he's good. Yeah, he's good. He's proactive.
I know. That's what So what he would like to do is for children in the age group 0 to 6,
Güvenlik eğitim alanlarında kreş, beslenme devlet tarafından ücretsiz olacak.
and that what he wants to do is that he wants to teach morals to children in this age group. He would like to make it free to the people, and that he would also have a feeding program for poor families.
Kanunla desteklenecek, sürdürülebilir olacak, sustainable.
And then in order to make it sustainable, he would need to make sure that it became part of the laws of the land.
Eğitim ailede başlar.
That education begins with the family,
Anne baba da okul aile birliklerinde yönetimde yer alarak takip edecek.
and that once school age starts, the parents would need to take an active role in their children's education, meaning they would need to know what's going on.
Devlet aile birlikte.
And that the government and the family would work together.
Ve independent, bağımsız sistemle desteklenecek.
And then this would be supported by independent systems. Wow is right.
That is great. Who else will share a goal with us?
I'd like to contribute to changing mentality of people towards assuming more responsibility for their lives and communities. And also to encourage more people with character and integrity and moral principles to get into public life and policy, because corruption, traffic of people, and all this relate to the integrity and to the values of someone. So it's better to encourage those who have them as values to go into these public functions.
So finding ways to identify those people and then encourage them into the public sector. Yeah, that's excellent.
Hopefully, I believe that I'll be able to do that by this time next year. I have a book on the office of the citizen. We have 2 already out on, strategic voters that have been finished this year. But the office of the citizen being able to encompass all of these things we're talking about, because if you have well-educated and exposed citizens, then everybody we're talking about, leaders and leaders, they didn't come from the sky. They came from amongst us. So that's one thing. Then as a group, we're looking at how to now partner with some of the government agencies. If you ask me personally, I'll be looking at the National Center for Civic Education and the National Development Planning Commission, so that way everything can be spread around through all the strata of society.
That is excellent. Excellent. Who else will share? Got to have someone else here. At least one more?
I think
To
Dr.
the left,
Salim
Dr.
has got something for us from Syria.
I think he's going to have something too.
He's got to have a good word.
As a conclusion in my mind, as I was trying to get together all the different segments, I have seen that the value system today is very fragile in our societies. And of course, the ruling power of the law and the integrity, in the same time, keeping up the same methodology that we are trying to educate and stimulate our minds and also pave the way for the coming generation, where is the value that we are going to show to our people? Today, during the lunchtime, we were talking with a group about this problem that we are losing the value system. And if we don't bring it back to our communities, we don't bring it back to our countries and to the generations that they are getting blurred idea about the future, then we are going to lose the surrounding. So the value system should be returned.
Thank you.
Yes, Polycarp?
I want to draw from two speakers in the past, the mayor from Turkey and also my brother from Syria. Without the integrity and also the excellence in a man, he cannot be entrusted with the kind of resources to rebuild a city that has been ravaged by earthquake. What you really see is integrity, trust. To give resources to someone to be able to rebuild a place that has been traumatized. From Syria, there was something he said yesterday that we must find ways to raise resources and possibilities for our people. I was shocked when he said he was from Aleppo, and I kept on asking him, did you say Aleppo? Because I know what happened in Aleppo. And he said, yes, I live there, but my family can't live there. And it was a type of what we have faced in Nigeria, where 68,000 people have died in 8 years, and the world has not even taken note. We had to be able to change the narrative. Listening to both of them, that there is an alternative to the life we're living. And the first thing to do is to change the narrative that there could be something else. And then the second thing, technology has made it possible to also proffer a superior argument to what we are doing. As I go back, those are the challenges. I watched the two of them and other people and the lady that spoke about today that spoke about the trafficking. I mean, it's like coming from a minus, and you have to walk back to the world and beat the system that seemed to have overwhelmed it. And you know, and what he said also this afternoon about Sudan, I have been there before. You know, 30 years ago, I was controlling an equivalent of $1.6 billion in a year for my state. And they asked me, you can make yourself rich. And I stood by it, but I discovered one thing. The power to do good is superior to the power of corruption. And I see that amongst our people now. So to go back now, whatever we see in our world system today, the power to do good, it's actually superior. And you can stand on it, and it can be overcome. And these people are examples of that. From Sudan, from Aleppo, from Turkey, I see all of this. And what it challenges me to do, all the more, first of all, to attract help from outside. I must remain consistent in both integrity and capacity so that I can be entrusted with those things. Yes, it will always, in the end, pay. It does not always turn out that way at the beginning, because we all pay a price for integrity. There's a price to it. And I have found out, you know, there is no price that doesn't have a price. And if we can pay it, and in Nigeria we have found it, and we just made it plain to people. You can go on in convenience and comfort and you die. Or you get up and challenge the system and change it. Thank you.
Gil, right there. Syria, Turkey, South Sudan. We're going to have to, we can take maybe one more and then we're going to have to break. Yes, sir.
It's not a comment, it's not a question. I just want to ask from you that, you know, in life you need to have somebody that helps you accountable. When I was challenged by this money issue, my wife told me that you take a good decision. But all my friends told me that, no, you would have taken the money. I would like you to be my advisors. When I go back to South Sudan, I want to change my country. I want to work with young people. I want to be the leader. I want all of you as a friend. If you have my card, ask me every 1 month, are you okay? Are you doing good? Are you not corrupt? Are you not protecting your integrity? I want you to do that. This is what I'm asking from you. So be my accountable person so that maybe what I'm trying to do in South Sudan, I will not be, I will not sink down into the depth of this corruption that is taking place. I want to be in the right side. So from now, call me, ask me what I'm doing. Thank you.
Yeah, let me just say a word of thank you all for your participation. It has been a joy to see the work that we've done all year come to life in your lives as we have all worked together and heard the messages to transform us. For as we are transformed, we can transform the world around us. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you for that, and especially thank you to all the presenters and those who engaged in the program. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And Kathleen, thank you for your great work all year. I know we're saying goodbye to you this afternoon on the way to Amsterdam, but thank you. It's been a great pleasure and honor to work with you. And yes.
Sorry for my jet lag that keeps getting me.
And I agree, Medhat, Trey, Owen, all the support staff, interns, Lori being our timekeeper, thank you. Speakers, all of you participants, this has been a great time. And we're so glad you took the time and paid the money, took the time out of your schedule to come and add value to all of us. That's what you've done. And I'm really excited, Medhat, about next steps and where we're going and what we're going to do next. So thank you all. Medhat's going to tell us about the tour in the morning. Then we'll take a quick picture and enjoy our break, and we'll be concluded.
Thank you. I will give the microphone to Owen.
Yes.
Yes. Hi, I hope you can all hear me. So the tour tomorrow is the John Calvin tour. It's kind of a quick tour about the old city in Geneva and the St. Peter's Cathedral, Protestant Reformation Cathedral that is there as well, that for quite some time was essentially the heart of Geneva. So the tour is tomorrow at meeting at 9:20 outside the St. Peter's Cathedral. There's a chance, I think, to still sign up outside. We're currently at 27, and it will run for about 2 hours, finishing at around 11:30. So for those of you who have flights in the early afternoon, you should have enough time to get to the airport and back and onto your flight. Yeah. Any questions?
And Owen, since you're standing here, I want to say thank you, especially for what you did to get us into the UN today. You did it. That was awesome. We weren't sure it was going to happen a month ago, but you did it. Thank you.
So just to...
And at St. Peter's
we're
Cathedral.
meeting at the St. Peter's Cathedral in the Geneva Old Town.
And on the issue of certificates, we can handle this afterwards, but if any of you want a certificate verifying that you have been here, email us, Owen or Medhat, and we're going to send you a signed certificate electronically that Kathleen and I will sign, okay? Some people want a certificate, some don't need it, but if you do, let us know and we'll get it to you within the next week, okay? Let's take a picture.
Just a minute. I just want to say a few words in closing. I just thank all of you for coming and lasting till today. But I know that my husband would be really pleased to know that his legacy of providing this kind of training is continuing. And also, just leave you with this quote. Someone has said, the only thing that takes for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing.
Yes, absolutely, Lana. Thank you.
Thank you, Lana. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, where do we think the best place to take a picture is going to be?
I mean, we decided to be here, so yeah.
So do we have a photographer?
Could someone just to bring beer from the outside for the group photo? Owen, can you?
Better because this table's kind of in the way.
So you manage this.
Front steps. Okay.
Let's go outside and meet in the front steps. Thank you. Outside. Outside.